Okay, first class, that's the carbohydrate. Carbohydrates serve as fuel and building material. And simplest explanation for carbohydrate, that's what? That's the sugar and sugar polymer. We call them as carbohydrate. As you can guess, the name is carbohydrate. Carbo means carbon. Hydrate means it's wet. It is a wet carbon. Well, okay, it makes sense because carbohydrate, it is composed of carbon and water. So the simplest carbohydrate are monosaccharides or simple sugar. Carbohydrate macromolecules are polysaccharides. That's the polymer composed of many sugar building blocks. Okay, for monosaccharides, that's the carbohydrates composed of just one simple sugar molecule. We call that's the monosaccharides. Monosaccharides have molecular formula. Molecular formula is showing you the composition of atoms. So molecular formula that are usually multiples of C1H2O1. So if I multiply with 6, it's gonna come out C6H12O6. That's the molecular formula for glucose. So that glucose, C6H12O6, is the most common monosaccharide. And the monosaccharides are classified by the location of their carbonyl group. So we already discussed over the carbonyl group, CO, because every sugar has to have one carbonyl group. So carbonyl group, by their location, it can be a ketone group or aldehyde group. So that's why by the location of carbonyl group, some of the sugar can be divided into aldose sugar and the other ketose sugar. And the number of carbon in the carbon skeleton, by that number it can be classified for the monosaccharide carbohydrate. This picture showing you some monosaccharides. They are aldose sugar, aldehyde sugar, aldose. So they have aldehyde type of carbonyl group. At the end of carbon skeleton, we can see CO. So glyceraldehyde, ribose, glucose, and galactose, they are aldoses. And on the right hand side, we can see ketoses. So the carbonyl group is located somewhere in the middle of carbon skeleton. So that's the ketone type. So we can see dihydroxyacetone and ribulose and fructose, they are the ketose sugar. And the monosaccharide sugar can be classified by their number of carbon. So sometimes we call trioses. three carbon sugars. So C3H6O3, glyceraldehyde, dihydroxyacetone. Oh, you don't have to memorize all those sugar names. You don't need. This one showing pentose sugar, 5 carbon sugar, C5H10O5. And for the aldose, we can see ribose sugar. And for the ketose, we can see ribulose sugar. This one showing the monosaccharide sugar hexoses. Hexo means 6, that's why 6 carbon sugar. That's why some of them aldose for the glucose and galactose, and ketose, that's the fructose. And their molecular formula are same actually, C6H12O6. So those glucose and galactose and fructose, their molecular formulas, C6H12O6, they are same, but with different structure. That's why we call them as isomers each other. Isomers means have same molecular formula but different structure. Because of the different structure, even though they have a same molecular formula, but their chemical properties are different. That's why when we taste glucose, it is sweet, but not very sweet, just a little bit sweet. But when we taste fructose, it is very, very sweet. So when we taste honey, honey is a mixture of glucose and fructose. That's why it is very sweet because of the fructose. And when we taste table sugar, sucrose, it is very sweet because of the fructose, not by glucose. And those isomers, they have different property. That's why. Though often drawn as a linear skeleton, as a line, just a line structure we can draw, but in aqueous solution, many of sugar, they form ring shape. And monosaccharides serve as a major fuel for cell, so they can be our energy source. And as a raw material for building molecule. So usually we can draw the structure of a monosaccharide in line, so linear form, but especially inside the water, they can form a ring shape. So sometimes we can draw ring shape of monosaccharide. A disaccharide is formed when a dehydration reaction joins two monosaccharides together. So, as you know, di means two and saccharide means sugar. So, disaccharides composed of two simple sugars connected by dehydration synthesis. That's why they have to extract out one molecule of water. This covalent bond is called a glycosidic linkage. This one showing you some examples of disaccharide. So the first one showing you maltose. The name comes out from malt. What is malt? Malt, we can produce beer from malt. So malt, that's the germinating barley seeds. That's the malt, because that disaccharide sugar is abundant in malt. That's why they put the name maltose. Anyway, this maltose is composed of one glucose and another glucose together by dehydration reaction. So glucose and another glucose, they have to go through dehydration reaction, extracting out one molecule of water, and they are connected together. It is so-called 1,4-glycosidic linkage, connected together. And the next one is showing you the table sugar, sucrose. Just a common sugar, sucrose. It is composed of, as I mentioned earlier, glucose and isomers fructose. Glucose and fructose, they put together by dehydration reaction. So extracting out one molecule of water, and glucose and fructose become sucrose. So it is connected by 1,2-glycosidic linkage. And now I have a question. As we already discussed over, the molecular formula for glucose and molecular formula for fructose, they are same. C6H12O6. Then, what's the molecular formula for maltose or sucrose? Okay, to calculate the molecular formula for sucrose, we have one glucose and one fructose, but their molecular formulas are same, C6H12O6. So we have same molecular formula for 2, so make it 2. So we can multiply by 2, then it's gonna become a C12H24O12. That's the 2 molecules together. However, to become a maltose or sucrose, they have to go through dehydration reaction. That's why we have to subtract 1 molecule of water. So from a C12H24O12 minus H2O1. Then what's the final molecular formula for sucrose or maltose? C12H22O11, because we subtract out 1 molecule of water, H2O1 minus. That's why final molecular formula for sucrose or maltose is gonna be C12H22O11. Polysaccharides, that's the polymer of sugar. So by the definition, more than 2 simple sugar, so from 3 sugar together, we call them as polysaccharide. 3, 4, 5, sometimes 100, sometimes some hundred simple sugar connected together by dehydration reaction make up polysaccharide. So have storage and structural roles. The architecture and function of a polysaccharide are determined by its sugar monomers and the positions of its glycosidic linkage. Okay, for storage polysaccharides, starch. There's a storage polysaccharide of plants consists entirely of glucose monomer. So when you look at starch molecule, so it is a all polymer of glucose, glucose, glucose. So some hundred of glucose molecule connected together. We call that's the starch. So plants store surplus the starch as granules within chloroplasts and other plastid. The simplest form of starch is amylose. So the name starch is not very scientific name. Yeah. That's the name of group. So inside the starch, we can have more precisely, we can have amylose and amylopectin. This picture shows that polysaccharides. Yeah. So all the way top portion, we can see storage polysaccharide. So that's the starch. Yeah, starch. So for the starch, we have a more specifically, we have amylose. So that's the glucose polymer, but unbranched, without any branch. So it is glucose, glucose, glucose connected in just one line. Then we call this the amylose. And what's the amylopectin? Amylopectin have some branch out, yeah, some branch out. So with some branch, they make up amylopectin starch molecule. How about glycogen? Glycogen we can find in animal body, so like human. So inside the human's muscle cell or inside the human liver cell, when you eat those food as a starch gonna get digested, so it's gonna broken into all glucose molecule, and inside the human body some leftover glucose molecule they're gonna recombine into another type of polysaccharide, glycogen. So glycogen, it is severely branched out. So that's why the many branched structure. So that's the structure, that's the characteristic for the glycogen. And the last one, that's the example of cellulose. Yeah. Cellulose, that's the major portion of the wood part. Yeah. So all the hardwood, the major component, that's the cellulose. That's the polysaccharide of glucose. Yeah. So glucose, they are all connected in line, make up cellulose molecule. They stay as a bunch, not just one, but many of them, they bind together. So they stay as a bunch of the strand of cellulose molecule make up a microfibril. Because of that, they are strong. They are strong. Now, it's showing you some difference between amylose starch and amylopectin starch. So amylose, that's the glucose polymer, glucose, we can see all the glucose in line, in one line. So we can see amylose, yeah, unbranched one. And with some branch, we can see amylopectin, amylopectin. So that's why, yeah. So amylopectin characterized by some branch. That's why by the structure it is more compact than amylose. That's why sometimes when we eat rice, yeah, so there are two types of rice here. So one plain rice, the other one is sweet rice. Japanese call mochi rice. Mochi rice. So what's the difference? So plain rice is sticky, but not very much. But for the sweet rice, it is much more stickier. Much more sticky for the sweet rice. Because of that, because of the major portion starch for the plain rice, that's the amylose. And for the sweet rice, major portion of starch, that's the amylopectin. That's why with the much more compact structure of the branched one, that's why it's much more stickier than amylose. And those storage starch, they are stored in the plant tissue, plant cell, and more precisely inside the plastid, like chloroplast and some other plastid. Plastid means chloroplast and amyloplast and all those plast put together, we call that's the plastids. As I discussed briefly, glycogen, that's a storage polysaccharide in animal. So inside the animal body, some leftover glucose molecule, they recombined into glycogen. So glycogen, it is characterized by severely branched one. That's why it's much more compact even than amylopectin. So it's very compact. That's why it is very good, very convenient for animal, because animal, they don't need bulky, they don't need big molecule, because animal, they have to all the time run away, or they have to run hunting the food like this. They have to move all the time. That's why compactness is very good to carry around. So that's why glycogen, that's the storage polysaccharide for animal. So glycogen is stored mainly in liver and muscle cell. And hydrolysis of glycogen in these cells releases glucose when the demand for sugar increases up. This one showing you the glycogen granules in muscle tissue. So highly branched glycogen molecule. Okay, storage polysaccharide like starch as a amylose or amylopectin or glycogen, they are the source for the energy source. But this one different. Structural polysaccharide, we're gonna talk about the cellulose. It is very different. those structural polysaccharide cellulose cannot be consumed as an energy source. They are structural. They make up some structure and never gonna get consumed by energy source. So the polysaccharide cellulose is the major component of tough cell wall of plant. Like starch, cellulose, that's the polymer of glucose, but the glycoside linkages differ. The difference is based on two ring forms for glucose, alpha and beta. This one showing you the cellulose molecule. That's the unbranched, that's the straight line. They connected together. One glucose and another glucose and glucose in line make up a microfibril, and those microfibril combined together make a microfibril plant cell wall, make up very strong. However, when you look at a cellulose structure, cellulose, the glucose connected together in line, when we look at closely, you can see it's little different than in starch. So when you look at glucose molecule from the last one, you can see glucose upside down, upside up, upside down, something like this. So we can see some position of glucose is zigzagged. So one upside, the other one downside, one upside, the other one downside, connected together. How come? So for the cellulose make up a microfibril and make up a cell wall, strong cell wall surrounding cell. Okay, this one showing you so-called alpha glucose and beta glucose. What's the difference? The position of OH connected downside, it is alpha glucose, and to the upside for OH, it is beta glucose. So when you look at a starch molecule, starch molecule with a glucose and another glucose, another glucose, another glucose, they are connected by 1,4. 1,4 means that's the carbon number. So carbon number 1 and carbon number 4 connected together by with the alpha glucose monomer. So when we look at starch molecule, the all the connection of glucose, when you look at a glucose molecule is upside, 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 upside. So their position is very regular. So all the same structure of glucose molecule we can see. However, when we look at cellulose, that's the beta 1,4 linkage. So 1,4 linkage of beta glucose, so they are connected together. So that's why with the beta glucose, when they connected by 1,4 linkage, no other choice. But their position is, first one is upside, next one is downside, next one upside, downside. So they their position is like zigzag. Yeah. So one molecule, first one is upside and downside, next one downside, upside, downside, something like this. Yeah, they are connected like that because of the different glycosidic linkage. Yeah, beta glycosidic linkage. That's why. Yeah. Okay, so that's the actually alpha and beta glucose. They have a little bit different structure. They have mirror image, yeah, mirror image difference. So that's the alpha glucose and beta glucose difference. So pictures showing you more precisely with the starch molecule with 1,4 linkage of alpha glucose monomer. So they are all the same position, yeah, same structure. They connected like this. Yeah. But on the other hand, the cellulose molecule, they are connected by 1,4 linkage of beta glucose monomer. That's why we can see first glucose upside, next glucose downside, next one upside, next one downside, like that. With a different the chemical bond. So starch with the alpha configuration is largely helical. They are straight. Sometimes they roll over, yeah, make up helical structure, yeah, in straight line. Yeah. However, cellulose molecule with the beta configuration are straight and unbranched. That's the difference. Okay, for human, when we eat starch, we have digestive enzyme to break down those starch molecule. With the alpha linkage, we have enzyme to break down. However, for human body, we don't have any enzyme to break down cellulose. So even if we eat cellulose, cellulose cannot be digested because we don't have enzyme to break beta linkage in cellulose, because enzymes that digest the starch by hydrolyzing alpha linkage cannot hydrolyze beta linkage in cellulose. So that's why cellulose in human food passes through the digestive tract as insoluble fiber. So they cannot be digested. And some microorganisms, they have enzyme to digest cellulose. Some bacteria or some microorganism, they have enzyme to break those cellulose. However, some animals, like the cow and the sheep and goat, they can eat cellulose as their food and they can digest it, no problem. Or some termite, they eating up wood, and no problem, they can live on. How come? Inside their digestive tract, they have some microorganisms like some bacteria. Those microorganisms, they have enzyme to digest the cellulose. That's right. They have symbiotic relationship with those microbes. So that's why those microorganisms, they break the cellulose and inside their digestive tract, they can just suck up. They just absorb indirectly. So they can live with those microorganisms and they can digest cellulose, no problem. Another structural polysaccharide that's not for plant but for animal. That's for chitin. It's found in exoskeleton, the outside frame of anthropod for the insect. So some insect they covering up, they covered up by kind of hard shell. That's the chitin. So chitin also provides the structural support for the cell wall of many fungi. That chitins, that structural polysaccharide chitin, the monomer, that's the amino sugar, amino sugar. So amino sugar, that's the monomer. So those amino sugar connected together make polymer that make up a chitin. So chitin embedded in protein forms exoskeleton of anthropod. Chitin can be used to make a strong and flexible surgical thread. That amino sugar, that's the structure of the chitin monomer. Okay, for lipids, lipids are diverse group of hydrophobic molecule. So there are many different things for the lipids, but to define lipids, the most important, the most conspicuous characteristic to define lipids is what? Is they are hydrophobic. They don't like water to get in touch. So that's why the hydrophobic, that's the most important characteristic to define lipids. So lipids are the one class of large biological molecules that does not include true polymer. The unifying features of lipids is that they mix poorly, if at all, with water. So they don't like water to mix up. And the lipids are hydrophobic because they consist mostly of hydrocarbon, which form nonpolar covalent bonds. Because of the nonpolarity, hydrocarbon, that's the hydrophobic. The most biological important lipids are fats, phospholipids, and steroids. Fats are constructed from two types of smaller molecule, glycerol and fatty acids. So more precisely, one molecule of glycerol and 3 molecules of fatty acid. Glycerol, that's a 3-carbon alcohol with a hydroxyl group attached to each carbon. And fatty acid consists of carboxyl group attached to a long carbon skeleton. In other words, fatty acid has the long hydrocarbon chain ended up with carboxyl group, so that's why that's the organic acid. Yeah? So as I mentioned earlier, organic acid having carboxyl group, so that's why when we call fatty acid, that's a long hydrocarbon, usually 16 carbon to 18 carbon hydrocarbon chain with carboxyl group, COOH. That's what? That's the fatty acid. This one is showing you a structure of a fat molecule. We can see at left hand side, we can see a gray colored one, glycerol. So 1, 2, 3 carbon alcohol, C, 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 and OH, 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 glycerol. And the right hand side, we can see fatty acid. Yeah? So we can see long hydrocarbon chain, CNH, CNH, CN, CNH, like this long hydrocarbon chain ended up with COOH. That's the what? That's the fatty acid. So with the glycerols H and fatty acid hydroxyl group, not hydroxyl, fatty acid carboxyl group, yeah. Carboxyl groups OH extracted out with H2O, so they connected together. Yeah. So fatty acid and glycerol connected not only one, but 1, 2, 3 fatty acid molecule connected to glycerol molecule. So those dehydration reaction, extracting out water, the linkage, we call that the ester linkage, but never mind, yeah, you don't have to remember the ester linkage, but they have to go through, actually they have to go through dehydration reaction, make up a fat molecule with 1, 2, 3 fatty acids and 1 molecule of glycerol. They put together to make up fat molecule. Yeah, this one showing you more detailedly with the glycerol molecule and fatty acid go through dehydration reaction. So not only 1 fatty acid, but 3 fatty acid connected with those, that glycerol. Fats separate from water because water molecule hydrogen bond to each other and exclude the fat molecule because of the non-polarity. In fact, 3 fatty acids are joined to glycerol by an ester linkage, creating a triacyl glycerol or triglyceride. Oh, never mind, triacyl glycerol or triglyceride, never mind that. Yeah. And the fatty acid in a fat can be all the same or of two or three different kinds. So because in fat molecule there are three fatty acid molecule connected into one molecule of glycerol, and those three fatty acids, it can be same or different. So usually they are all different because it's very improbable for the same fatty acid molecule are connected to a one molecule of glycerol. That's why. Okay, this one showing a fat molecule, and when we look at a 1, 2, 3 fatty acid, and inside the fatty acid, when you look at the first one, first fatty acid, and when we look inside the fatty acid line, hydrocarbon line, and when we look at carefully with hydrocarbon line, C and C and C and C and C and C carbons, they are connected by single covalent bond, single bond. So between C and C and C and C, 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 C. So first fatty acid, the carbon skeleton, and with the carbon, they are all connected with single covalent bond, single bond, single bond. And next, fatty acid with the carbon to carbon, they are all connected by single covalent bond. And single covalent bond with H and H, H, H. So C, they are connected with H, H, H like this, And the third one, that's the same one, same thing. All the C, they are connected by only single covalent bond. So when we look at a structure of fat molecule inside the fatty acid, with the hydrocarbon chain, with the carbon to carbon make up a hydrocarbon carbon chain for the carbon skeleton. When they make up a carbon skeleton without any double bond, only with a single bond, we call that fat molecule or fatty acid, we call that's the saturated fatty acid or saturated fat molecule. Hey, what you talking about, saturated and unsaturated? So when we look at a fat molecule with the hydrocarbon chain, carbon, they are all connected by only single covalent bond, then we call that fatty acid or a fat molecule as a saturated fat or saturated fatty acid. So what's the difference with double? We're going to check. Okay, when they make up fat molecule, fatty acid vary in length. Number of carbon can be different. And in the number and location of double bond make up different. So number and location of double bond. So when they form a fatty acid hydrocarbon chain, they are all connected by only single covalent bond with carbon to carbon. Then we call that's the saturated fatty acid. That fatty acid all make up with a single covalent bond only between carbons. then we call that's the saturated fatty acid, because when they are all connected by single covalent bond, C and C and C and C like this, then what? They can have maximum number of hydrogen connected with carbon. So that's why maximum number of hydrogen connected with carbon, that means those carbon saturated by maximum number. Saturated means maximum, they are surrounded by maximum number of hydrogen. That's why we call that's the saturated fatty acid. They are all connected by saturated number or maximum number of hydrogen connected because of the only single bond between carbon in hydrocarbon chain. However, if they have one double bond between carbon to carbon, or more than one, two or three double bond, then we call that fatty acid or fat molecule as a unsaturated fatty acid. So, unsaturated fatty acid have one or more double bond between carbon to carbon in fatty acid hydrocarbon chain. The final structure of a fat, it can be different from that saturated fatty acid or unsaturated fatty acid by the chemical reason. When a fat molecule composed of three fatty acids, with all three fatty acids, they are saturated fatty acid, make up saturated fat molecule, then their structures are very compact, because with a saturated fatty acid, they are basically straight structure. And with those fatty acid straight structure, their overall structures is very compact, because straight line is like a compact. They can be arranged in compact. That's why in a room temperature, those saturated fat molecules, they stay as solid form. It's hard, straight. I mean, with a straight line, fatty acid, it is kind of compact at a room temperature. They stay as solid form. However, with the chemical reason, for the unsaturated fat, every point with the double bond, their line of the structure of fatty acid, they're gonna get kinked, they're gonna get bent. Every position with a double bond, they're gonna make bending like that. That's why with the double bond, it can cause a bending one direction to another. That's why with the unsaturated fat, their structures are not compact, but they are loosely arranged. That's why at room temperature, unsaturated fat, they stay as liquid form. Not a solid form, but liquid form. So they stay as oil. So usually for the animal fat, like the bacon or lard or butter, they are saturated fat, so they stay as solid form. However, for the fish fat, or plant fat, they are basically unsaturated fat, so they stay as liquid form as they stay as oil. So like the sesame oil, like the canola oil, those kind of oil, they are plant fat. So because of the unsaturated, they stay as liquid form. This one showing saturated fat is composed of 3 saturated fatty acids. So there are zigzag line, 1, 2, 3 lines. So they are all connected by single line. Means they are all connected by those carbon. They are connected by single covalent bond. Make up a saturated. So at the bottom, yeah, you can see the structure of those fatty acid is basically straight, yeah, straight. Make up a compact structure of saturated fat. On the other hand, we can see unsaturated fat. So with a fatty acid, yeah, 3 fatty acid, if we have 1 double bond and more than 1 double bond, then that fat is a unsaturated. Yeah. So with the unsaturated means they have, we can see 1 double bond between carbon to carbon, and they make kinking, yeah. They make bending. So that's why with a loosely arranged, not compact but loosely arranged structure, they stay as liquid form, oil, for unsaturated fat. Fats made from saturated fatty acids are called saturated fats, and they are solid at room temperature. Most animal fat are saturated, so they are hard. Yeah. And fats made from unsaturated fatty acids are called unsaturated fats or oils, and they are liquid at room temperature. And plant fats and fish fats are usually unsaturated, as I mentioned earlier. And when we eat saturated fat, they are solid form. So when we eat the saturated fat and digested those saturated fat, and when they are loaded onto our bloodstream, those saturated fat, they are more likely attached at the inner surface of our blood vessel. So inner surface, our blood vessel, it can be thicker and thicker with those saturated fat. It can cause atherosclerosis. That's a cardiovascular disease, atherosclerosis. So in this country, we call 동맥경화증. So that's why saturated fat is kind of not very healthy. Sometimes in food industry, they can make unsaturated fat into artificially, they can make into saturated fat. Then what? When we have a peanut oil and put water and shake up vigorously, then what? It can become artificially saturated like that. We call that the hydrogenation. Yeah. So when they produce peanut butter, that's the hydrogenated food. Yeah. So hydrogenation, that's the process of converting unsaturated fats to saturated fats by adding hydrogen. So hydrogenating vegetable oil also creates unsaturated fat with trans double bond. And as I mentioned earlier, those saturated fat is for our health. Yeah. It's kind of dangerous because of the atherosclerosis. Yeah. With that point, unsaturated fat is much more healthier. However, when we eat hydrogenated food, when they make hydrogenation, it can make trans double bond, so-called. Trans means with a many double bond, they can bend one direction and come back to the same point. Yeah, so it can bend to one direction and it bend one more time to come back with a position that we call that's the trans fat, we call so trans fat. So this trans fat may contribute more than saturated fat to cardiovascular disease. So somehow, yeah, those hydrogenated food, they are much more dangerous than even saturated fat. And certain unsaturated fatty acids are not synthesized in the human body. So these must be supplied in the diet. These essential fatty acids include the omega-3 fatty acids, which are required for normal growth and are thought to provide protection against cardiovascular disease. The major function of fat is energy storage because what? Those hydrocarbon, yeah? So major portion of fat molecule, that's the hydrocarbon. Hydrocarbon is energy rich. And the humans and other mammals store their long-term food reserves in adipose cell containing fat molecule. Adipose tissue also cushions vital organs and insulate the body, block up the temperature. Next one is phospholipids. These phospholipids are very important for the biological membrane. That's the building block for the membrane. So the structure of phospholipid is very similar to fat molecule. In fat molecule, we have one molecule of glycerol and three molecules of fatty acid. They bind together by dehydration reaction. However, for the phospholipid, we have one molecule of glycerol and two molecules of fatty acid. In place of third fatty acid, we have phosphate group PO4 attached to the glycerol. That's why we have one molecule of glycerol and 2 molecules of fatty acid and 1 molecules of phosphate group attached to make up phospholipid. The 2 fatty acid tails are hydrophobic because most of the part it is hydrocarbon. But the phosphate group, it is PO4 because of the negatively charged, it is hydrophilic. Yeah. The water molecule, they love to get in touch with those minus electrical charge. Yeah. So hydrophilic. So tail side, yeah, those fatty acid tail side, it is, hydrophobic, and the head side, phosphate head side, we call that's the hydrophilic head. This one is showing you the structure of phospholipids, and usually it has, like in picture, choline, the additional attachment to the phosphate group. And because of the structure, kind of typical property emerge out from the structure of those phospholipids. So this one showing you the structure of the phospholipids molecule. So it has, we can see a glycerol molecule, and to the downside we have 2 fatty acid connected to glycerol, and to the upside we have phosphate group PO4 and the additional group attached like in choline. So it has 1 hydrophilic head side and 2 tail hydrophobic tail side, we can see. Because of the dual property for phospholipid, so phospholipid gonna get symbolized by the 1 head, hydrophilic head, with a 2 hydrophobic tail. So for the head side it is hydrophilic, and for the tail side hydrophobic. So that's why when we put those phospholipid molecule inside the water, they arranged voluntarily inside the water like that picture. What is that? For the head side, they try to get in touch with water. So for the head side, they heading water side, but for the tail side, they don't like water to get in touch. That's why tail side, they group together without any water. So the result, they voluntarily form a phospholipid bilayer. We call that's the phospholipid bilayer. 인지질 이중층. So that's because of that hydrophobic characteristic for the molecule of phospholipid. That phospholipid bilayer, that's the basic structure for biological membrane. So, as we discussed already, when phospholipids are added to water, they self-assemble into double-layered structures called phospholipid bilayers. At the surface of a cell, phospholipids are also arranged in a bilayer, phospholipid bilayer, with the hydrophobic tail pointing towards the interior. So inside the bilayer, no water, but only the tail side they group together. The structure of phospholipids results in a bilayer arrangement found in cell membranes. The existence of cell depends on phospholipids. So that's why these phospholipids are very important for the biological membrane. The other group of lipids are steroids. Steroids, that's the lipids which have 4 fused carbon rings with various functional groups attached. Again, the steroids are lipids characterized by a carbon skeleton consisting of 4 fused rings. Nowadays, we hear very often about cholesterol. It has a very bad name because with a high level of cholesterol, it's not good for our health. However, this cholesterol, there's a type of steroid, there's a component in animal cell membrane and a precursor from which other steroids are synthesized, like the testosterone, male sex hormone, or estrogen, female sex hormone, estrogen. Those kind of hormone can be produced from that basic steroid, cholesterol. A high level of cholesterol in blood may contribute to cardiovascular disease. We can see the 4 fused ring for the cholesterol molecule, and it looks a little different from other lipids, but when we look carefully, those lines, every corner of those lines, and for the ring shape, every corner of the ring, that's the carbon. So, and every corner, that's the carbon, and they don't put hydrogen. Yeah? So every corner means C, sometimes CH3, CH2, or CH like that. So that's why when we translate this structure in an atom, they are all composed of CH and CH2 and CH3 for every corner of that line. So that's why actually most of them, they are hydrocarbon. That's why the steroid molecule, they are included into the lipids, hydrophobic. That's why.